Breaking news this morning and shocking to many, the New York Appeals Court just overturned Harvey Weinstein's conviction and is planning a new trial. What's going on? We got Christopher Melcher to explain. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor. Welcome back, Christopher Melcher. Good to have you, sir. How you been, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. Still just super busy with my day job, so that's why I've been absent. But definitely for this one, we talked about it before when that trial was going on. So this is super important to revisit what happened today.
Yeah, I remember we did. You reminded me even. Yeah, we talked about this previously of just this could happen, and now it has. And I think a lot of people are sort of shocked. Well, what does this mean? Well, first off, we can say Harvey's still in jail because he's still serving his California sentence, right? Now, if he wasn't serving that, would this mean I guess would he have been serving in New York already, or this was explain like will he still be punished? I guess is what the first thing many people are going to want to know about.
Yeah, he's not getting out of jail. So he was convicted in New York, and then he was also convicted in California of kind of similar, but other people involved in that case. So he is serving time under the California case. Now this New York conviction has been overturned. We're going to talk about why there's going to be potentially a new trial in New York, but he is going to stay in prison on the California charges while this is going on. Now he's also appealing in California. Could the same thing happen there? We don't know. And that's kind of the thing we're going to talk about here is how did this happen? Was it justice to be overturned, or was this a complete desecration of justice? These are the kind of things we need to get into.
Well, it's important because, we had the Cosby incident happen as well, where that sort of case got mixed up as well. And then we got the Diddy investigation everybody's waiting on. These are all connected, guys. It's important we know how the law works and how this is, and everybody gets a fair trial. So let's start there. Why is this appeal happening? This was because of specific witnesses that came forward, correct? Christopher, can you explain it?
Sure. So Harvey was charged with, we have to be careful with language, but he was charged with doing some awful things to some women and in New York. Now, for each criminal charge, the prosecutor has to identify the victim and, say, okay, what crime did he commit as to that victim? So that's totally fine that those victims were able to testify. The problem happened, though, is that other people who claimed that Harvey did similar things to them were also allowed to testify, even though no criminal charges were brought against Harvey with respect to those witnesses. And Harvey complained about that right at the beginning, said, I can't get a fair trial because I should only have to stand trial for these people who I'm accused of hurting. There's these other people who I'm not accused of hurting who are now coming in and really piling on and saying he did the same thing to me. And the risk there for a criminal defendant, and we have to imagine here, us being the criminal defendant. This is really the only way that you could see this from both sides. So if you were charged with hurting somebody and you denied that charge or you just wanted to take it to trial, would you think it's fair that they paraded in front of that jury everyone else that claimed that you had hurt them also? And maybe is, maybe not, but you certainly wouldn't like it. Now, so that's what Harvey was complaining about.
And just to add to what you're saying, the court's majority said it is an abuse of judicial discretion to permit untested allegations of nothing more than bad behavior that destroys a defendant's character, but sheds no light on their credibility as related to the criminal charges lodged against them. And as you're saying, this is a conversation, right? Because some might argue, well, yeah, it's totally relevant, Christopher, because it's more examples and things that show his credibility, his issues, his problems. But at the same time, we have to look at it objectively, right? He's on for a specific crime is what he's being charged of. And it's easy to lop all these together and say, bad guy, see, look. But it's like, well, I'm not being charged with that. I'm being charged with this. So it is complicated. I can get it.
Yeah. So, to me, the way, after doing this for a long time, it helps to look at it from everyone's unique perspective. So right now we're talking about it from Harvey's perspective or the criminal defendant perspective. Of course, they're saying, hey, I'm accused of doing things to two victims. Only let those two victims testify. Don't allow evidence of any other bad acts that I've done in my life. Of course, that's what he wants. Now, what the prosecutor did, though, is saying, look, the crimes that he was charged with involved questions of intention. Were these acts consensual? Because that was Harvey's defense. He was saying, hey, I'm a famous and powerful movie producer. These ladies wanted something from me and I wanted something from them. And there was nothing more to it. It was completely consensual. And they're only making it up now because they want to, get me in trouble or money or whatever he was claiming.
Right.
So that's his defense. So, and the women obviously are saying, no, that was we were tricked into that room. It was completely unconsensual. We were violated. And so who's telling the truth? To me, it is really important to know if he has done the same thing to a bunch of other women. That is to me proves that this was not a mistake. This was not consensual for these other cases. We've heard of MO or modus operandi, in Latin. It's just like some criminals, in particular in these type of crimes, have a very specific way of committing their crimes. This isn't random, like, rob, a bank or something, or whatever, a convenience store that just came into somebody's mind. These are well thought out, and they prey on people. And so they put themselves into positions of power so that they can access victims, and they do it in a particular way. And we heard evidence that there's a pattern. And so I think it was highly relevant. And I think that the majority court, so also it's important here, is that these justices on the Court of Appeal who reviewed this did not all agree.
Well, and I have a quote here. In a stinging dissent, Judge Madeline Stingus wrote, "The majority was whitewashing the facts to conform to a he said, she said narrative." Said the Court of Appeals was continuing a disturbing trend of overturning juries' guilty verdicts in cases involving SV. The majority's determination perpetuates outdated notions of SV and allows predators to escape accountability. So yeah, you got two competing judges making their comments known that this was not an easy verdict.
No. And it's the majority of the, justices on that Court of Appeal thought that Harvey didn't get a fair trial, and, so he should get a new trial. That's the way they saw it. To me, I'm more on the dissenting side of it. I have read the opinion and I understand, the issues back and forth here. But to me, how else are you going to prove these crimes? And we're going to potentially, if Diddy ever gets charged, it's going to be the same type of thing, because it's like we're not just talking about like an eyewitness to an event that's, it's either a crime or not. It's pretty clear. These type of things, get involved in, was it consensual? What was the intention of this person when they did that? Well, we can't get into their mind, and they're not going to usually testify. So how else do we prove what their intent was other than just showing, well, they did the same thing 10 times in a row?
Right.
To me, that's compelling, but I understand the other argument is saying, no, you can only bring in evidence of the people you're charging them for.
Yeah, it's interesting because Diddy's defense recently in the PR mode was to bring up with Little Rod, the producer that's made the allegations. Now they're trying to drag up Little Rod's history of like, well, when he was 17, he murdered somebody in a car crash, and there were allegations or charges against him of abuse, etc., all of which were dismissed. But there's certain instances with that. Well, how is that relevant, right? These are irrelevant cases. In this instance with with Weinstein, it does feel like the people who are coming forward, the uncharged as they're called, did seem to be relevant to the case. So it is interesting how these judges sort of decided. What's weird to me is like, how is it even allowed? If the judge allows a witness to come in, then at that point we should all say, well, we've all agreed. Now it's the judge is determined. We're moving forward. This weird idea that, a judge and the trial proceeds with witnesses that suddenly the appeals court can say later, well, those witnesses were bad. I don't know. It's funky to me. Is there no protocol in place to be like, well, judge approved, so we're there. I guess we can't because the judge can make the bad decision, and that's the point of the appeals court?
That's right. I mean, we have to remember this is a criminal prosecution. It's not a civil case where we're saying, hey, I want, money from Harvey because he hurt me. This is, I want Harvey to spend the rest of his life in prison. And so, this is the, when you kind of look at, when you zoom out, okay, certainly if somebody's a victim here, they're going to say this is completely wrong. we also have a system of justice. And so as a civilized society, the way we test our system of justice, whether it works, is for the most despicable people who find themselves in criminal prosecution. And if we're able to treat them fairly, then we hope that if one of us gets charged with a crime, that we're going to be treated fairly. So this is the kind of thing that causes courts of appeal to saying, hey, this went too far, give the guy a new trial. And I understand it, but it does re-victimize people, because all those folks are going to have to now come back if he's recharged and tell their story again. And this
much money spent too. Oh,
yeah, the cost of the state. But hey, the state, state knows better. And they're in the business of prosecuting people, so they maybe could have done things a little bit different. But
do you think this will happen in California as well, or do you think they're going to treat this differently?
I think that he's going to raise the same defense. I think that there were some uncharged, witnesses in the California case, if I recall it correctly. I'm sure he'll run the exact same case. But again, all they needed is one more justice on this New York case to flip it to say we're denying it. And we're probably going to see some backlash here from this New York decision that might impact the California decision. So, I wouldn't anticipate that he'll win in California, but again, you just never know.
What are the odds that this is political? I mean, we obviously have a very political trial happening in New York right now with a former president. Do you think there's a connection to this? Do you think there's trying to set a precedent for things, or do you think they're not related?
It's hard to say that it's related. I mean, I don't see anyone running to Harvey's defense. I mean, he is a toxic individual. So, I mean, the justices must have known that in making this ruling that they are, going out on a limb to help this guy. I don't know why anyone would want to help him. And I don't believe it would have much impact on these other cases that we're seeing, because everyone is super unique. So I don't think it's politically motivated. This rule that they cited, has been around, for 100 years. So this is not a new rule that they're relying on. It's just they happen to be interpreting it a little bit differently than others have.
Fascinating. That's where we're at. So unlikely that Harvey will be released and actually be free at this point. He's got enough years in California, and as this appeals happen, they'll probably still keep him in there. As he might spin this as good news, the dude's still probably going to rot in prison. Is that your take?
Yeah, I think based on the California conviction, his age and health, I mean, anything could happen, but I think it would be unlikely that he would be released. And they're going to have to, maybe decide whether they're going to really charge that New York case or not. And so these are the kind of decisions that'll be made in the next couple months.
But either way, this is an important piece of news, because we got to be aware of how this works in future cases. Diddy, et cetera, all need to be more careful of this and this uncharged person, because now clearly there's a precedent set that it can be thrown out in an appeal. So I imagine that will change cases moving forward. We will keep you posted as it happens. Make sure to follow Christopher over on Twitter or X or whatever. Oh, I hate that name, but there it is. CA_divorce. Follow him. He's got some takes when he has time. We'll have him back when we can. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for being here. And guys, make sure you subscribe as well. If you haven't already, hit that bell for alerts. Smash the button. Smash that thumbs up for me and leave your comments down below. What do you think? Are you surprised by this? Do you think this could affect other cases? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Stay tuned. We also got some more coming for you later today when we're live. We'll see you guys there around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.